Okay, so this will be the first of many videos, I'm not sure how many, delving deep into this iceberg you see over here. So this is the ultimate iceberg of the unexplained, unsolved, and bizarre. I came across this iceberg a few months ago on the Iceberg Charts subreddit. It was posted by a guy named Illegitimate Time Lord, so shout out to him. I'll put the link in the description so you can see the whole thing. But today we're just going to go over the first tier. So if you haven't seen an iceberg video before, basically everything at the top is more well-known cases of unexplained, unsolved phenomena, and as we go deeper, it gets into the real obscure. What I was going to do was try to cram everything in the first tier into one video, but that turned out to be extremely long, so what we're going to do is split this up into two videos. You know, part 1 of tier 1, part 2 of tier 1. Okay, so this is the first tier. As you can see, we're going to cover all these entries except one, which I believe if I talk about it on YouTube, this video is going to get taken down. You can guess what that is, I suppose, at the end of these two parts. But I would like to talk about it, I just can't, because I know even mentioning it would get this video taken off YouTube, so unfortunately we can't talk about it. So without further ado, thank you for watching. Let's get into the first entry. 11BX1371. So this was a video that went viral in 2015 that depicts, as you can see, a man in a plague doctor mask walking around with this blinking light on his hand in an old, dilapidated building. For this one, I'll put some footage of it over top of me talking about it. More than just this video being off-putting and creepy, people also began to find ciphers and images and whatnot in the video itself and its sound spectrogram. Some of these images were of tortured and mutilated people, most noteworthy of which victims of the Boston Strangler. Some people have interpreted this to be implying bioterrorism against the United States, although it's also been speculated this video is just a prank or a viral marketing stunt. However, a man did come forward by the name of Parker Warner Wright, claiming to have created the video, but what it was marketing, I'm not entirely sure. That never came out, so I guess he got his name out there if he did create the video, which is still under speculation, but if not, pretty bad viral marketing if people don't know what you're marketing. Next up we have A858. So back in 2011, an account on Reddit began posting an indecipherable sequence of letters and numbers on a subreddit called r/A858DE45F56D9BC9, or obviously A858 for short. After going unnoticed for about a year, a couple of users on Reddit found it and began their own subreddit called Solving A858, where they attempted to decipher what these codes could mean. At first, the creator of the original subreddit kept it private, only allowing certain people in to view the codes, but eventually made it open to the public. Eventually, they were able to decipher some of these codes, but deciphering them didn't really help solve the mystery at all. Some of these things they deciphered were excerpts from books, this book called Actions and Passions by Max Lerner, as well as images of Stonehenge. Then in 2015, a company did a AMA on the Solving A858 subreddit, which they claimed responsibility for the subreddit and said that it was part of a larger information gathering project that they were undertaking for a larger organization. However, they didn't say what that organization were or who they were, so this one's partly solved. It was apparently some marketing company doing it, but we still don't understand why or for what reason any of this was conducted. So, okay, next up we have Amelia Earhart. So Amelia Earhart first gained worldwide recognition for being the first woman to fly solo over the Atlantic Ocean. However, during an attempt to become the first woman to circumnavigate the globe, herself and her co-pilot Fred Noonan disappeared after taking off from Laos, New Guinea on their way to the Howland Islands, which would have been one of the final legs of their trek. Nobody really knows what happened to Earhart and her co-pilot. More than likely they just crashed in the ocean and ran out of fuel. However, there's been a lot of unsubstantiated reports from different people saying they saw her in photographs. A little girl in California said that she picked up a distress signal from Earhart on her shortwave radio, which is probably not true. And there was also a woman who lived the entirety of her life constantly being harassed and told that she was Amelia Earhart, living under an assumed identity. However, in my opinion, it's most likely that she just crashed at sea, unfortunately. Next up, we have Anneliese Michel. Anneliese Michel was a German woman who underwent 67 Catholic exorcism rites in the year before her death. When she was 16, she experienced a seizure and was diagnosed with psychosis. After taking psychiatric medicines for 5 years and seeing no results, Michel and her family began to be convinced that she was possessed by a demon. In 1973, she suffered from depression and began hallucinating while praying, and complained about hearing voices that would tell her that she was damned and would rot in hell. Michel became intolerant of Christian sacred places as well as objects like the crucifix. As a result of all of this, her family reached out to the Catholic Church for an exorcism. At first, they were denied, but eventually, 2 priests got permission from a local bishop to start doing exorcisms in 1975. The priests then began conducting exorcisms, which you can actually find the audio of these exorcisms on the internet, and they're incredibly terrifying. At that point, her family stopped consulting doctors, and Anneliese quit eating or drinking water, and eventually died of dehydration and malnutrition. Michel's parents, as well as the 2 priests, were found guilty of negligent homicide as a result of all of this, and were sentenced to 6 months in jail, which was then shortened to a couple of years probation. On top of all of this, on the 6th of June 2013, a fire broke out in Anneliese's old house, which the fire department called likely arson. However, the people in the area believed that it was attached to the exorcism case. Next up, we have the Okigahara Forest. So the Okigahara Forest is a forest on the northwestern edge of Mount Fuji on the island of Honshu in Japan. The area is well known to Japanese residents as the home of the Yuri, which are ghosts of Japanese mythology. Since at least the 1960s, the forest has been known, as you probably know it, as the, I don't think I can say it on YouTube, but the End Life Forest, right? Because of this, there are signs like you can see here, warning people to think of their families and to reconsider their actions and to contact a End Life hotline prevention program. In 2003, 150 bodies were found in the forest, exceeding the previous record of 78 in 2002. In 2010, the local police said that over 200 people attempted that in the forest, of whom 54 were successful. In recent years, however, officials have not given out the number of people who have attempted or completed their acts in the forest as an attempt to deter people from using the forest for such means. Next up, we have the Andrew Gostam disappearance. So Andrew Gostam was a 14-year-old kid from Doncaster, South Yorkshire, who disappeared after going to central London in September 2007. After leaving for school one day, Andrew decided to go to an ATM, withdraw £200, and then get a train ticket from his home to the King's Cross station in London, where he was last seen on CCTV footage, which is the footage that I have up here. His reasons for going to London have never quite been identified. He brought his PSP with him, however he didn't bring the charger for his PSP. He did not bring a coat. Everything that he had basically was what you see him wearing in this picture. No other CCTV cameras, which are littered all around London, picked this kid up. No leads have ever been made in the case. Nobody has ever been arrested that had any idea anything to do with this disappearance. This case has gone completely cold. This one is most fascinating for people because with all the security cameras and, for God's sakes, all of the people in London, not one single lead was ever found in this case. It's like he disappeared into thin air. Okay, now we're on to the Annabelle doll. So Annabelle is a allegedly haunted Raggedy Ann doll that is housed in the Occult Museum of Paranormal Investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. According to the Warrens, a student nurse in 1970 received the doll and was then told by a psychic medium that the doll possessed the spirit of a dead little girl named Annabelle. The student and her roommate at the time tried to accept and nurture the doll, which, weird move, I'd say, but whatever. But then noted that the doll began exhibiting malicious and frightening behavior. It was at this point that the Warrens were contacted, and they then took the doll from the student and put it in their occult museum in this box that you can see and labeled it demonically possessed. There have been many stories over the years of people who have come to this occult museum and taunted the doll, and later met with some horrible tragedy. Famously, a man came and mocked the doll and then got in a car accident and lost his life on the way home. Whether that story is true, we don't know, but there you have it. The Ark of the Covenant. So the Ark of the Covenant is an ancient, powerful religious artifact from the Bible said to have been given to the Israelites by God while they were encamped near Mount Sinai. The Ark was very meticulously crafted based on the designs given to the Israelites by God, and its intended purpose was to carry the 2 tablets that contain the 10 Commandments. What these Israelites did with the Ark of the Covenant was they would carry it in front of their armies on the way to battle to ensure victory. Now, nobody's exactly sure what the Ark would do, but we do know that, according to the Bible, nobody was really even allowed to look at the Ark. It was always covered with some kind of sheet, and even priests were not allowed to look at it. Nobody quite knows what happened to the Ark of the Covenant. A lot of people believe that it could be under Mount Nabu. They believe that it could be in one of the pyramids of Egypt, as well as in Ethiopia. There's a very famous temple that claims to house the Ark of the Covenant that is guarded by priests 24/7 that nobody's allowed to go into. Okay, the Babushka Lady. So this one refers to specifically a woman seen in footage of the JFK assassination dressed like a Russian babushka. No one has ever been able to ascertain the identity of this woman, but many theories exist as to what her identity might be, as well as maybe somebody who was an accomplice to the killing of JFK. But one of the main reasons that the Warren Commission wanted to find this woman is they believe that she had alternative footage of Kennedy that pointed towards the grassy knoll. While this has never been verified, a conspiracy researcher named Gary Shaw in 1970 said he met a woman named Beverly Oliver who claimed to be the Babushka Lady. Upon asking her what happened to the footage that she took of the event, she said 2 men who she assumed were FBI or CIA agents approached her after the event and told her that they needed the footage to document it. They told her she would get the footage back as soon as they were done with it, but she never saw it again. However, that whole story is hearsay. We don't really know if it's true, but to me it is incredibly bizarre that nobody was ever able to ascertain who this woman is, why she was there, and also if you watch footage of her, why she seems so blissfully unaware of the events happening around her at the time. But this is probably one that we will never get solved. The Bermuda Triangle. So this is one of these topics that, especially in this first tier, is going to come up a lot. A lot of these mysterious circumstances we have, at least in the first tier, have to do with the Bermuda Triangle. So I'm just going to be really brief on the explanation here. The Bermuda Triangle is an area of land between Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico that has had a large amount of aircrafts and ships go missing in it. A lot of people complain of strange weather patterns, magnetic instruments malfunctioning, all manner of strange activity. And as, like I said, you'll see here with some of these other entries, the Bermuda Triangle comes up a lot, especially in maritime disappearances. Well, obviously, because it's in the water. You know what I meant. Now we're on to the Black Dahlia. So I'm going to try to stay as PG as possible with this one, but the Black Dahlia was a name given to a woman named Elizabeth Short, who was found murdered in Lyman Park in Los Angeles in 1947. On the morning of January 15th, 1947, a woman named Betty Bersinger was out walking with her 3-year-old daughter when she noticed what she believed to be a discarded store mannequin laying in the road. Obviously, upon closer examination, she realized that was not the case at all and phoned the local police. When the police and medical examiners arrived, they noticed that the body had been washed and completely drained of blood. The body was also posed in a very lewd position. Obviously, if the other clues didn't point towards it, they knew that this body had been placed there on purpose to be found. After being identified by her fingerprints as Elizabeth Short, local newsmen decided it would be a good idea to call her mother in Boston and tell her that her daughter had won a beauty contest and that they needed all this information to put in the local paper about her. It was only after gaining as much information as possible that they told the woman that her daughter did not win a beauty contest and had in fact been murdered. This case obviously is very notorious for never being solved. There were some suspects, but nobody was ever taken that seriously. Recently, a man claimed that his father, George Hodel, was the killer. He claimed that he overheard his father talking about his less than ethical medical practices. His father was a doctor. He claimed to do back alley abortions, and if it did not take and the woman would die during it, he would get rid of the body. And it was actually discovered that apparently the LAPD wiretapped this guy's house, but was never able to get definitive evidence that he did it. But more than likely, it was probably this George Hodel fella. Next up, we have the butterfly effect. So I'm not quite sure what the butterfly effect is doing on this iceberg, but if you don't know, the butterfly effect has to do with the fact that one little small event could snowball into something larger. Where it comes from is, that was the example given when this was explained, that a butterfly could flap its wings in Argentina and cause a typhoon in the South Pacific, right? This could also be referring to the fact that in time travel lore, you know, if you go back in time and step on a bug, your grandfather could have never been born in some way. You know, everything could snowball out of control. But other than that, I'm not quite sure why this is on the iceberg. Maybe you can enlighten me in the comments, but yeah, the butterfly effect. Okay, next up we have the Carroll A. Deering. So the Carroll A. Deering was a commercial ship that was found run aground off the coast of North Carolina in 1921, with none of its crew anywhere to be found. So this is one of the most famous maritime mysteries, with a lot of people attributing the strangeness of the event to the fact that it went through the Bermuda Triangle. However, there's never been any evidence of anything paranormal or supernatural in this case. But then again, there's really no evidence of anything in this case. When the wreck was examined, not only was there nobody on board, all of their personal effects had been taken with them, and there was a meal prepared to be served the next day. Some of the explanations for what happened, the US government believes that it could have been a hurricane that somehow washed all of the men overboard, but nothing else. Some people believe it could have been piracy, even though I don't know why they would take all the people with them. Another example would be mutiny, but again, I don't really understand why everybody would just leave the ship and not just take the ship with them. But I know I'm not going to get to the bottom of this. This is an enduring mystery for over 100 years, but a really fascinating one to dig into. Cicada 3301. So Cicada 3301 is a nickname given to this enigmatic organization that on 3 separate occasions has posted these set of puzzles on the internet in a supposed attempt to find code breakers from the public. The first set was posted on January 4th, 2012 on 4chan and ran for about a month. The next one was posted a year later on January 4th, 2013, and then a third round on, you guessed it, January 4th, 2014. That last puzzle has yet to be solved, and no new puzzles have been posted since then. However, on January 5th, 2016, a clue was posted on Twitter to help solve that third puzzle. However, that puzzle still has not been solved. Since then, a new puzzle has not been posted. Okay, next up we have the Cooper family falling body photo. So in this photo, as you can see, it appears that some sort of demon, man, ghost, whatever, is falling from the ceiling in this old-timey 1950s photograph. However, every little bit of research I did into this led to one answer, that this is more than likely a hoax. This image didn't appear until around 2013, most likely on 4chan. The story behind the photo of this being this Cooper family that moved into this new house and took this picture and didn't notice this creature, man, falling from the ceiling until later, that's never been verified that that's even a true story. More than likely, this was a photo created by somebody to advertise their horror photos that they would make. I don't know who that is, so they clearly, again, did not do a very good job marketing their photo. Should have put a watermark on it. You know, just my advice. Now on to crop circles. So, crop circles are exactly what they sound like. They're circles made in a crop. Some claim the first crop circles appeared in the small town of Tully, Australia in 1966. The story goes that a farmer saw a flying saucer lift off from his field, and then upon investigation, he noticed all these rows of the grain that he was growing all flattened out. And then when they looked at the petroglyph above, I don't know if I'm using petroglyph correctly, but they noticed this circular formation in the field. So then in July 1996, one of the most famous and complex crop circles popped up in England. Not only did it appear in England, it appeared not too far away from Stonehenge. This crop circle was called the Julia set. A lot of people at the time tried to explain it away by saying it could have been a weather phenomenon or any other amount of countless things, but still to this day we really don't know if these things are made terrestrially or extraterrestrially. While some people have been known to commit hoaxes with these crop circles, a group of guys came forth in the 1990s saying that they were the ones doing it. My favorite explanation for crop circles is a real theory that the reason that these pop up is because of mating hedgehogs. That basically they mate and they roll around in the field until they create insanely intelligently designed circles. So that's the one I choose to believe is horny hedgehogs. Next up we got D.B. Cooper. So D.B. Cooper is an unidentified man that hijacked a Boeing 727 between Portland and Seattle in November 1971. After hijacking the plane, he had it land in the Seattle-Tacoma airport, after which he was given $200,000 in ransom money, as well as 4 parachutes. Then, shortly after takeoff, D.B. Cooper jumped out of the plane, taking with him the briefcase full of money, and was never seen again. This case is most famous because it is the only case of air piracy in the United States to never be solved. More than likely, he died jumping out of the plane, as it was brought to light that 1 or 2 of the parachutes that were given to him were dummy chutes. However, again, no body was ever found, and the majority of the money was never found, except for in 1980 when a young boy found a couple of the banknotes that were given to D.B. Cooper in the Columbia River. However, that's not to say he didn't lose a couple of them along the way. And there have been some people that claimed on their deathbeds that they were D.B. Cooper, which I don't think you can take that seriously. I think I might do that when I die. Could be fun, shock, but I'm a little too young. Dyatlov Pass. So Dyatlov Pass refers to an event in the Ural Mountains in 1959 in which 9 hikers lost their lives under mysterious circumstances. The group of hikers was an experienced group from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, led by a man named Igor Dyatlov, who established a camp on the slopes of Kholat Syakhl. I'm sorry, that's the name of the mountain. I don't know how to pronounce it. During the night, something caused them to all tear out of their tents and run into the night, all to their deaths. After the group was discovered by the Soviet authorities, they determined that 6 had died from hypothermia, while the other 3 had died of physical trauma. 1 victim had skull damage, 2 had severe chest trauma, and 1 had a small crack in their skull. 4 of the bodies were found lying in running water in a creek. 3 of these had soft tissue damage to the head and to the face. 2 of the bodies were missing an eye, and 1 was missing a tongue, while another missing his eyebrow. The investigation concluded that, quote-unquote, a compelling natural force had killed these people. Many people have had different theories about what happened, most prominently that there was an avalanche. However, there was no evidence of an avalanche in the area ever reported at the time. Also maybe an animal attack, also infrasound induced panic, basically the military shooting sound waves into these people's ears, which I think is probably not the answer. But the picture that I have pulled up here is one of the last known photographs taken by the hikers of Dyatlov Pass, and it is very frightening. Even though it's most likely just one of the hikers, it's still a chilling final photo to take. Eastern State Penitentiary. Eastern State Penitentiary is a former American prison located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The penitentiary was revolutionary at the time for its separate incarceration that it would do, as well as having inmates such as Al Capone and Willie Sutton. However, the reason it's on this iceberg is for the immense amount of paranormal activity that is reported inside of its walls. Guests claim to get a glimpse of men in the guard towers of the building. However, that is impossible since the stairwells to these guard towers have been demolished for years. Other employees and tourists claim to hear giggling, whispering, and weeping at different times of the day, which if there's one thing I don't want to hear in a prison is giggling. That's just me. The most famous of all of these apparitions is a woman who is often seen at the end of the woman's cell block, dressed in all white, who is nicknamed the Soap Lady, who has been reported by countless people that worked at the prison, as well as tourists. Next up, we have the death of Edgar Allan Poe. Edgar Allan Poe was a famous American author known for writing The Telltale Heart and The Raven, who died on October 7th, 1849, under mysterious circumstances, to say the least. After missing for a few days, a man spotted Edgar Allan Poe walking and stumbling, completely delirious, obviously in need of immediate medical attention. After taking him to the Washington College Hospital and having him stay there for a few days, Edgar Allan Poe passed away. Over his stay at the hospital, he was never quite able to explain how he ended up in the condition that he was in, nor were physicians able to diagnose him with any specific ailment. Many people have come up with theories to explain what happened to him in that time. Some people say that he was murdered, obviously poisoned in some way. They say that he could have had cholera, rabies, syphilis, influenza, also that he could have been a victim of cooping, which, if you don't know, cooping was a thing that they used to do back in the old days, where they would basically kidnap somebody and force them to vote for a certain political candidate at different polling stations all around the city. The thing that I find the strangest about Edgar Allan Poe's death is that the man who wrote his obituary under an assumed name, whose real name was Rufus Wilmot Griswold, became the executor of Poe's estate. However, during life, this man and Edgar Allan Poe were bitter rivals, and it is from this man, Rufus Wilmot Griswold, that we get the image that a lot of people associate Edgar Allan Poe with today from the biography that he wrote about him. Things like him being an alcoholic, a drug addict, just a madman through and through, all came from this strange man who inherited a lot from Edgar Allan Poe and had a lot to gain for his death. And next up we have El Chupacabra. So El Chupacabra is a legendary creature in folklore in some of the Americas. It gets its name, Chupacabra, as literally meaning goat sucker, as it is known to exsanguinate the blood out of local livestock. In 1975, a series of livestock killings took place in the small town of Mocha and were attributed to El Vampiro de Mocha, the vampire of Mocha. Initially, it was suspected that the killings were the result of a satanic cult. Later, more killings were reported around the island, with many farms reporting that they lost at least one animal. Each of these animals had the same MO in their death, though, saying that their body had been bled dry through a series of small holes. The first reported attack, eventually attributed to the actual Chupacabra, took place in March 1995 in Puerto Rico. 8 sheep were found with these 3 little bite marks on their chest, all dead and completely drained of blood. Later, in August, an eyewitness named Madeline Tolentino claimed to have seen the creature described in this image you see here in this small Puerto Rican town of Canovas, where as many as 150 farm animals and pets had all been killed due to the same MO, the 3 little bites on the chest, completely drained of blood. Okay, next up we have Elisa Lam. So Elisa Lam was a Canadian student who was staying at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles. She had been staying there for about a month when she was reported missing. Later, her body was discovered in the water tank above the hotel after residents of the hotel began complaining about water pressure issues and that the water was coming out murky and dark. This disappearance is fairly famous on the internet. I'll put a video up here of the famous elevator footage that was uncovered, that, as you can see in this footage, shows her apparently running from something or hiding from something. At the time, it was speculated across the internet that perhaps she was running from a ghost, because the Cecil Hotel is famously haunted due to numerous amounts of uncool things that have happened at that hotel. However, she was suffering from bipolar disorder and was off her medication, so it's more than likely that she was in an altered mental state and just had a breakdown. The Cecil Hotel has now since been rebranded as the Stay on Main, like I said earlier, because of this and numerous awful things that happened there. The guest of the hotel at the time, as well as her parents, sued the hotel. I think this one isn't quite as much of an unsolved mystery as it used to be. Unfortunately, it was just a case of untreated mental illness that was pretty tragic, I'd say. Now we're on to Elsagate. So Elsagate was very hot button issue on YouTube back in around 2017. If you don't know, Elsagate is the name given to the phenomenon where people would create these very unfriendly to kids videos that would then be put on kids' YouTube, which would show primarily the character of Elsa, a woman dressed up like Elsa, and usually people dressed up like different superheroes like Spider-Man, performing very odd acts like sexual acts, drug use, spousal abuse. Basically anything that you can imagine that should not be suitable for a child was done in these seemingly kid-friendly videos. Like I said, there have been people that have been complaining about this since 2012, but it really took off in 2017 with a lot of widespread media coverage and coverage by several YouTubers. It was at this point that YouTube decided to crack down on these channels and try to eliminate as many as possible. However, I'm sure that those are still up, even though YouTube has tried to, curtail their kids' algorithm and kids' content, I'll say that. But I think the weirdest part about this entire thing to me is the point of all of this, because there were hundreds and hundreds of these channels at one point. And like I said, I'm sure there's still channels operating today making this seemingly kid-friendly content that has like intravenous drug use in it that makes no sense. There's not really any purpose for it, but what I will say, I guess, is the reason is that these videos garnered a lot of views. So maybe it was just a way to get views on YouTube, but really weird way to get views. Okay, and now we're on to another Bermuda Triangle unsolved mystery. So Flight 19 is unique to me because I remember this being one of the first, I guess, mysteries I can remember being incredibly obsessed with as a child. I distinctly remember going to the library and checking out books on the Bermuda Triangle, specifically Flight 19, Discovery Channel. At least every year would have multiple different documentaries, quote-unquote documentaries, about Flight 19. But the story behind it is that a group of 5 Avenger torpedo bombers were on a routine training mission and disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle on December 5th, 1945. So all 14 airmen were lost, as well as 13 men who were on the rescue mission to find this flight. A report by Navy investigators concluded that the flight leader, whose name was Charles C. Taylor, mistook a small chain of islands for what he thought was the Florida Keys after his navigational equipment malfunctioned, as one's equipment is to do in the Bermuda Triangle. This resulted in him leading his flight away from land and out into the ocean, where they then subsequently ran out of fuel. This report was later amended to say cause unknown to avoid blaming Taylor for the loss of the 5 aircraft and the 14 men. Then subsequently, a report attributed the loss of the rescue mission to find them to a mid-air explosion while searching for the flight. However, neither of these have ever even been proven, so the Navy really was just grasping at straws. We don't know what happened to this flight, but I would say their official investigation, at least for Flight 19 itself, makes sense. However, the rescue mission, not quite. Alright, now we're on to Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. So this is definitely one of the most famous mysteries of the last 10, 20 years at least. Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 was an international passenger flight that was operated by, obviously, Malaysian Airlines. It took off from Kuala Lumpur on its way to Beijing, where it then disappeared over the South China Sea. The aircraft was lost from air traffic controller radars, where it was then subsequently picked up by the military radar, where it was seen veering off its course westward and then completely disappeared off their radars as well. The subsequent investigation and search for the plane was one of the most expensive and expansive in history. Teams scoured the entire Indian Ocean and were never able to find anything. That was until around 2015-2016. Some debris washed up in the western Indian Ocean, but besides that, that's the only traces they've ever been able to find of the flight. As with a lot of things on this iceberg so far, a lot of these airline disasters over water, it's most likely, obviously, that the plane crashed into the ocean. The question that is on a lot of people's minds is why that happened. One theory that's been proposed that I think is probably likely is that the pilot of the plane decided to commit end life and took the entire plane with him. And I hate saying that because we obviously don't know if that's true, but that seems like the most likely outcome. Generally, obviously the other idea is that the plane was hijacked, but normally if you hijack a plane, you want somebody to know that you hijacked it for what reason, and then you do something with the plane. You don't just crash the plane for no reason. So I'm gonna have to go with the end life scenario. Fountain of Youth. So the Fountain of Youth, as the name suggests, is this mystical location where the waters in the area can prolong your life and, in a sense, make you live forever. People have been searching for the Fountain of Youth for years. The most famous example would be the Spanish explorer Juan Ponce de Leon. Juan Ponce de Leon was the first governor of Puerto Rico, and like many Spanish explorers of the time, he would talk to the locals where they would tell him grand stories of the Fountain of Youth. The city of El Dorado is another one, however that was more localized to Mexico. And these people would then go and search out these locations. So Ponce de Leon believed that the Fountain of Youth was in Florida and spent many years of his life looking for it. However, since Ponce de Leon, died, I don't think he ever found the Fountain of Youth, but perhaps maybe he did. He killed a body double, and Ponce de Leon could be watching this video, which if he is, shout out. But most likely, if the Fountain of Youth were to exist in these legends, it would exist in Florida. However, a lot of people around that area at the time of Ponce de Leon said that it existed in Bimini, which is an island in the Bahamas island chain. Freemasons. So Freemasonry or Masonry refers to this fraternal organization that has its origins back in the 13th century. Basically what officially Freemasons are, it's a fraternal organization, like I said, that deals with stonemasons, judges their qualifications, helps them deal with clients and local authorities. However, that's obviously not why they're on this list. Because of the political pool, economic pool that they've had throughout the years, many people have subjected them to conspiracy theories, and rightfully so. Some of those conspiracy theories being that they intertwine various symbols and numerology into modern culture, such as corporate logos, such as examples on the money in the United States. Another theory is that the United States was founded by Freemasons, which is not a theory, it is a fact. That these people put a lot of Masonic symbols into American architecture, our national seals, like I said, the dollar bill. And for some of these founding fathers who were Freemasons, you have George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, James Monroe, etc., etc. Really, any founding father you can think of belonged to this group, which, to get away from the conspiracy a little bit, a lot of these guys that helped found the United States were community leaders, which they obviously would have been Freemasons. However, a lot of people do believe also that Freemasonry overlaps with or is controlled by the Illuminati, especially the higher degree members of the Freemasons. And this conspiracy, extends to the fact that the Freemasons and Illuminati want to develop a new world order. It should also be pointed out that Freemasons, people in Freemasonry, I should say, are heavily involved in other secret societies such as Bohemian Grove, the Skull and Bone Society, and the Rhodes Scholars. Goatman. So, Goatman could refer to a lot of different urban legends about a Goatman, but the one I'm going to talk about is the historic legend of the Ghost Man in Prince George's County, Maryland. Goatman stories originated around the 1970s within Prince George's County, following the disappearance and or deaths of many dogs and other pets, despite evidence to the contrary, such as people saying that these dogs actually died by getting hit by trains, which likely story from somebody who wants to cover up a Goatman attack. But people around the area have put Goatman is here graffiti all over the place, and there have been multiple sightings in this area of the alleged Goatman, who people in the area claim lives in a shack out in the woods and will come out to feast on your dog if you're not careful. And if that doesn't sound terrifying enough, there's also been reports that the Goatman has wielded an axe and chased after people in their cars, which is far more terrifying to me. Have you seen this man? So this man, according to a website created in 2008 by an Italian marketer named Andrea Natala, named Ever Dream This Man, was a person who is claimed to have been in many people's dreams over the years, and nobody can explain why they are seeing this exact person. This story in itself gained a lot of notoriety around 2009, and a version of the story has been shown in various TV shows like The X-Files. The man was first drawn by a well-known psychiatrist in New York in January 2006, who was doing therapy sessions with a client who claimed that she saw this man in her dreams. He later sent the image to a psychiatrist friend of his, who then said that he had a male client who had also dreamed this man. It then snowballed from there, where thousands of people all over the world, from Paris, Beijing, Ottawa, Berlin, Sao Paulo, had all seen this man in their dream. So this is a very creepy conspiracy theorist. I've seen, or not conspiracy, mystery that I've seen propagated all over the internet. However, I have my own theory on this whole thing, that this is actually from the TV show Twin Peaks. And let me just get into this real quick. So this comes from, if the story is to be believed, which I do believe it in a sense, that there were people that saw a image of this face in their dreams, and the title of the website, Ever Dream This Man, has devolved into Have You Ever Seen This Man? So in the show Twin Peaks, that was released in the 1990s, you have these flyers that went around all throughout the first 2 seasons of the show looking for the supposed murderer of one of the main characters of the show, with the line at the top of the image being, "Have you seen this man?" And this was repeated throughout the show many, many times. And then the image that is often sketched of this man looks a lot like the little person that is in the TV show that plays a very creepy character that shows up to people in their dreams in the show. So I believe if this is to be believed and that people do have this dream, I think really this could just come from nightmares people had after watching Twin Peaks. I don't know, let me know what you think in the comments, but in my opinion, I think that could be a good explanation. You have that phrase, "Have you seen this man?" repeated in the TV show, and you have this person acting creepy in the TV show who looks like the sketch. I think it makes too much sense, but on to the next one. The Hinterkaifeck murders. So the Hinterkaifeck murders occurred on March 22nd, 1922, on this small Bavarian homestead located about 40 miles outside of Munich, Germany, in which the entire family, including their maid, were murdered by some unknown assailant. The 6 victims were Andreas Gruber, Kazilla Gruber, their widowed daughter Victoria, Victoria's children Kazilla and Joseph, as well as their new maid Maria Baumgartner. 4 of the family members were found stacked in the barn, seemingly have been led there one by one and then bludgeoned to death with a mattock, which is a form of pickaxe. Then the other 2, the youngest son and the maid, were found in the house. Now why this case is so famous as it is because the perpetrator seemed to have then lived in the house for the next 3 days. Witnesses, quote-unquote witnesses, who passed the house saw lights on in the house, they saw the stove working, meaning that somebody was in the house with these bodies for at least 3 days after the crime. It's considered the most puzzling unsolved mystery in the history of Germany. Another very creepy aspect to this case is that the family's original maid reported hearing creepy sounds coming from the attic that terrified her so much that she then ended up quitting, and then the day of the crime is when they got this new maid, Maria Baumgartner. So that first maid definitely dodged a bullet, I'd say. The Holy Grail. So the Holy Grail first shows up in Arthurian literature, basically stories about King Arthur, where it's described as a cup, dish, or a stone that can give happiness, eternal youth, or it just never goes empty. You can just drink whatever's in it forever. It wasn't until the 12th century where it became connected to Jesus, saying that it was the cup that Jesus used at the Last Supper, and that Joseph then caught Jesus' blood in the cup during the crucifixion. Then moving on to the 18th century, or 19th century, 1800s, where this Austrian pseudoscience writer named Joseph von Hammer-Purgstall connected the Grail to conspiracy theories surrounding the Knights Templar, who he said were commissioned to keep track of and protect holy relics and artifacts. Then, most famously in the 20th century, these writers, Michael Bagent, Richard Lee, and Henry Lincoln, created one of the most widely known conspiracy theories that have popped up in many movies and books, that the Holy Grail, in fact, is not a cup, but the Holy Grail represents the literal bloodline of Jesus Christ, thinking that he impregnated a woman that he was known to be around in the Bible, Mary Magdalene, and that he was not in fact a divine being and had children on earth, and that there's this wide conspiracy theory to cover up the fact that Jesus has living descendants on earth today. Okay, I feel fantastic. So this is another one of those things so far in this iceberg that isn't exactly an unsolved mystery or unexplained, but I guess it is bizarre. I Feel Fantastic refers to this short, creepy video of an android singing a creepy song in this mysterious house that was posted in the early days of YouTube. This video first surfaced on the internet in 2004, along with other music videos of this same android. It came about that these were created by a man named John Bergeron, who first posted about the project in 2001. He states that he created Tara with the goal of selling her to be used for entertainment, research, and security. I don't know what the hell this thing would do security-wise, but whatever. But this blew up in 2004, and later on it's become legendary on the internet. However, all the wild rumors that people came up with about this, such as this was a serial killer making these videos who had dressed Tara, the android, up in the clothes of his victim. There's one video that shows her out in a field. People theorize that's where this killer had put the bodies. All these creepypastas and whatnot created about this video basically made the guy, John Bergeron, who made Tara and these videos, kind of retreat from the internet because he was harassed so much about it. So this one isn't really unexplained. It's just, without a doubt, insanely creepy. The Ice Woman of Minnesota. So this one refers to a 19-year-old girl named Jean Hilliard who in 1980 got into a car accident near her home and then attempted to crawl her way to a neighbor's house. However, she was unsuccessful and basically froze to death almost until said neighbor found her and got her to a local hospital. When she got to the hospital, it was found that she was severely frostbitten, had major hypothermia. I found quotes by the doctors. They said that they did not think that she would live. When you get frostbite, basically your cells are frozen, and they didn't see any way out of it, where even if she did make it, she would probably have brain damage. She would need to have her legs, maybe even her arms amputated. So doctors were kind of stumped by this entire situation. And then about 2 hours after she had come in, she went into these wild convulsions, and after that point began to recover completely. And I mean completely. Did not have to have anything amputated, and after getting discharged from the hospital about a month and a half later, had no ill effects of this whatsoever. And obviously this is the picture of the girl right here. Doctors really could not explain it. It's unexplainable, which is why it is on this iceberg. But really insane story. Nobody has any idea what possibly could have had her have this recovery. The Illuminati. So the Illuminati was a real secret society that was founded in May 1776 in Bavaria, which is now a part of Germany. This society, along with the Freemasons and a bunch of other secret societies, were outlawed with the help of the Catholic Church in Bavaria by this guy Charles Theodore, who I guess you could call the governor of Bavaria, in 1784. Their legend only grew from then, I guess, having been outlawed. A lot of people blamed the French Revolution on the Illuminati, and since then, almost every major conflict, everything that has ever happened somehow finds a way to be blamed back on this conspiracy theory of this secret Illuminati society controlling the world. Like I said, even today, people believe that the Illuminati infiltrates the government, media. I remember the early days of YouTube going on here and finding videos claiming Jay-Z, Beyonce, all these people were part of the Illuminati, which they very well could be, and that the Illuminati's main goal is to control pop culture. the government to form a new world order. Facebook info taps. So, sort of like the butterfly effect earlier in the iceberg, I'm not sure exactly what the exact thing that this one is talking about is. Obviously, your information is not safe on Facebook. Anybody can really hack into it anytime they want if they try hard enough. This could be referring to the fact in August 2019, there was a major data breach of Facebook that leaked hundreds of millions of users' information, but it also could be referring to the fact that Facebook has let law enforcement officials, law enforcement organizations tap into people's Facebooks to gather incriminating information on them. This happened in Hartford County when a judge allowed the police to tap into somebody's Facebook app to listen to their messenger calls and look at their messages they sent in order to gather, like I said, incriminating evidence on a person. So I guess overall, don't put anything on Facebook you don't want people to know. Simple as that. Issei Sagawa. Issei Sagawa, also known as Pang or the Kobe Cannibal, is a Japanese murderer, cannibal, and necrophile. I don't know if I can say that, but necrophile, known for killing Renee Hardevelt in Paris in 1981. Sagawa murdered Hardevelt, mutilated, cannibalized, and her corpse over the course of several days. Sagawa was then arrested when trying to dispose of the body, but released after 2 years of pretrial detention after being found legally insane and deported back to Japan. Because of his release, because of a legal technicality, he has since become somewhat of a celebrity in Japan and gained international fame for his acts. He's a free man. Here's him doing an interview with a photo of the woman. So that's cool, I guess. It's not cool, it's awful, but you know. That's going to do it for the first part of Tier 1 of the complete Unsolved Mystery Iceberg. If you liked it, leave a like. If you didn't like it, you could leave some constructive criticism in the comments. I'm pretty new at making YouTube videos, so I'm sure it's not perfect. So, you know, if you could tell me what I could do better, I'd appreciate it. I should have part 2 up in a week. I'm going to try to release these weekly, which might be kind of hard, but I think we can do it, splitting it up like this. Other than that, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.